Right now, though, I want to talk something much nicer and much more pleasant, and I did name him this morning. Craig Woolliams is his name. He runs an outfit called Maharajah Tours, and I've got to say, all my slightly better off than me friends currently appear to be somewhere on the Costa del Bloody Sol, or in Italy, or somewhere in Greece and Santorini, literally. Got a call from a mate in Paris the other day, or people in London, and part of me thinks... I wish I was there, but it does seem to me an awful lot of New Zealanders getting rid of a lot of pent-up travel frustration recently. And Craig's a good person to talk to, because prior to COVID, Craig, this was your deal, this was your thing, this is your business and your life, but specifically travel to the subcontinent, to India.
Yes. Good morning, Sean, and good morning, listeners. That's right. So India was prior to COVID, but I prefer to look to the future. And we were doing 8 tours a year to India, but things are looking up. I'm booked out for this year.
Wow.
And early next year, I'm looking at putting some dates together for the south and the north of India. And people, it's booming again. So it's good to see. People do want to get away.
Lockdown, though, in COVID killed the travel industry, though, didn't
it? Absolutely.
And it was gone. Now, you had interest, I think you told me you just bought a bus.
Yes.
Up in India, you had a little bit of infrastructure in that market.
Yeah, we put built a bus up there, and we put a toilet on board, and because that was something that infrastructure in India pretty much required for particularly for the ladies, because us guys can look after ourselves.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is a loss. We had to sell that. Recently, it's being sold. However, saying that, I've got so many contacts in India from having travelled there for nearly 40 years, and so we've got the infrastructure necessary to travel the country.
Craig, I know New Zealanders think about travel, and there's this romantic notion that goes back to, doing Europe and the combi van, and everyone goes and stays at a mate's flat in London. That's the big OE. But our demographics as a country have changed markedly in like 20, 30, 40 years. And it seems to me, particularly in the sort of travel you're doing, there is now a demand for those who are almost doing things in the reverse. You do your OE or your big overseas experience once you've lived your life, once you've made a success or you've got comfortable, you then look at travelling, which is an entirely different experience to backpacking. So I know you specialise in taking people to India. It looks to me like that could be a hell of a tough way to travel. And, you're going to get culture shock in a place like India. To be honest, you're probably going to get ripped off. You might get sick. Very complex, full of people, full of strange cultural norms. I'd say in some ways, and I hate to sound old, full of danger, which you don't necessarily want when, you're of an age.
Absolutely. It is probably one of the most challenging destinations on the planet.
Yeah.
But one of the most, it gives back as much as the challenge. And that's why I specialise in escorting. I don't guide because I know a lot about India after 40 years, but there's so much to know that we employ government guides because in India they still have a regulation around knowing what you're talking about, and you have to be licensed to allow people to enjoy the experience without those distractions. You use the word danger. More and more that's been reduced because of the infrastructure. India's, over the last decade plus, has grown by 8 to 10%. And a lot of that growth has been put into tourism infrastructure, roads, hotels, and the likes. And we only use 5-star hotels. And I can tell you a 5-star hotel in India would be the equivalent of a 7-star hotel in New Zealand, because the difference is in New Zealand it's bricks and mortar. In India they're service people. They love service.
People, and there's no shortage of people in India.
And they enjoy serving.
Yeah.
They don't see the hospitality sector as an entry point to or paying for a university degree. They see it as a real job.
Well, that's a cultural difference I hadn't thought about too, because the hospo job, I mean, I know a few people who are professional in hospo, but it's not generally seen as a status position unless you're in a pretty rare air. But of course, with that many people, it is perfectly acceptable. It can be a career, if you like.
It's also a culture in India. I mean, if you look at the Indians in New Zealand, they're predominantly in the service industry, whether it's medical or down to the corner dairy.
Yeah.
They enjoy serving. We Kiwis have been brought up to have a little bit of a silver spoon attitude, and we don't necessarily, well, look at the people in this country who do all the cleaning, all the hospitality. Yeah. Generally, it's immigrants.
Yeah.
First, so we sort of look down our nose a little bit on the service, but in India, no way. When you turn up at a 5-star hotel in India, you're treated like royalty. And
almost to the point, I can remember this travelling in Egypt, almost to the point where you feel the underclass because you do not know how high the standards and protocol are of the people who are serving you. In fact, they make you feel like country bumpkins because they are the sophisticated ones who know how the system works. It's really weird, actually.
Yeah. But then also the other thing is, and you mentioning lots of people, and yes, that is another part of the challenge, and a lot of the people in India do want to not take advantage, but they need to get a crust, and they do. There is some things that happen that without someone like me standing between the tout and the tourist, you can get very uncomfortable, and that does.
So when you say I'm not a guide, but I'm an escort, and that means, geez, and I don't mean the term not almost a chaperone, just to make sure everything goes well on the date, as it were.
But also prior. So my contacts and my knowledge of India means that I can get the best price. I mean, I would challenge many people to go on their own and see that they get it cheaper. And they certainly won't get the same opportunity because of the knowledge that I take of where to go and to get there unhindered, without having to pay the taxi driver to take you around the block 15 times. My role, as I see it, is to just clear the way so people can truly enjoy what I think is the most amazing country on the planet. I mean, I'm obsessed with the bloody place.
All right. Look, Craig, obviously you had to just cool your jets for 2 years while the COVID lockdowns were on. Is that also true of the destinations around the world that are taking tourists again? I mean, has India been sitting there waiting for the guests to come back, or was the world carrying on without us?
Look, this is a big frustration of mine because, again, I have friends and people in India. They were back in business with tourism in 2021, October.
Yeah.
And the government was giving free visa applications to bring the people back. India's back where it was. I think it's at 95% of where it was prior. And just to put that in perspective, 10 years ago, I kept an article that was in the Times of India that talked about they would be in 10 years, so notwithstanding now COVID, but now, if COVID hadn't happened, they would be in the top 10 destinations travelled to from the world.
Yeah.
And that has its downsides because the amount of people, tourists coming, and with the escorts with a flag so that they can see them. I don't need a flag because I'm 6'5", and they just have to watch the back of my bald head, and they can the sun shining off that, and they can see the glow. But the amount of people, and that's another reason, because we take small groups. I mean, we average 12. We wouldn't take any more than 20. Yeah. And that means we can move easier around, and we're not consumed by these huge groups of 45 people on a coach. So that's the downside.
So it's really quite a bespoke experience with you, Craig, and I'm thinking about going up early in the new year with you. But you're competing, as I said, every man and his dog is in bloody Santorini or somewhere at the moment. I'm going to give you a chance to sell India. As I say, I've never been there. And I must admit, I think, if I'm going to be honest, deep down in the corner of my heart, I found some of it daunting. I'm a little bit afraid of India.
Absolutely. I mean, and that, when I first went up in 84, I was shocked. And I was a young man, and I thought I was bulletproof.
Yeah.
And it just was an experience of a lifetime, and it's meant that I've gone back year on year. So yes, people, that's a very good reason to come with me. I mean, I can't take away all of the challenges, but I can certainly make sure that you're able to enjoy much better than if you're on your own and being swamped by the people who are just trying to make a buck, from beggars to touts. And I don't actually, I mean, going back to your comment, the competition, I don't see any of the other destinations in the world as a competition. India is an incredible place. It is so diverse. There is so much history. I mean, it goes back centuries. Yeah. Varanasi, for example, on the Ganges River, where they cremate the bodies on open pyres and then push them into the river so that they can achieve what's called moksha, which is basically heaven, which is the stopping of reincarnation. Yeah. That is the oldest city that has continued on the planet. So continual city. Lots of cities have closed down because of whatever reason and then started up. Varanasi or previously Benares, which is the city of light. So the history is significant. Then there's all the quirky history. I mean, did you know that the Indians invented snakes and ladders? Chess?
Well, snakes and ladders make sense in a strange way.
Well, it's karma and moksha. It's karma and moksha, and so the ladders are achieving moksha, and the snakes you slip down if you've got bad karma. And that was taken back by the British after the British Raj and the India East Company took it back to London and turned it into snakes and ladders.
Jeez, chess, you see, that's a great little piece of trivia.
Chess is another. Invented in India. Zero was invented by a mathematician in India. If we didn't have zero, we wouldn't have digital calculation because there was no concept of zero. So there's all sorts of stuff that you learn every day that you travel through.
Well, Craig, you are not looking for backpackers. You're not looking for 20-somethings who wear cut-off jeans and stuff. What sort of people come with you? And we're starting an ad campaign for you next week.
Yes.
We kick off. But just as a precursor to that, what sort of people do you think get the most out of travelling with you?
So anybody that listens to the platform, the beautiful, intelligent people,
told you.
the beautiful, your stats that you've sent me. I mean, that's my market, and I think the most predominant one is the stat that you've taken from the Courier poll about the independence of the platform and how in the middle there's this great group of people who are open-minded and look at both sides and are intelligent enough to do that. That means that in my view, those people are the sort of people looking at a country like India, wanting to learn and experience that wonderful fabric that they have of diversity, of culture, of history, the food. Yeah. I mean, it's the best food. Yeah. It's the best Indian food. You can't go past Indian food. And so the people that have come with me in the past, we do mature groups. Yeah. And people that are open. They've got to...
But equally, you're not slumming it here. No. It does sound pretty nice. I was almost thinking it's like a cruise ship on land. And you're in a port every day, but you still get to go back to your cabin or to the nice safety of the cruise ship.
It is. I don't know that I would necessarily make that distinction because I mean I couldn't think of anything worse than being stuck on a cruise ship.
But if you are in port every day but the port changes in front of you, that sounds kind of interesting.
Oh, and travelling across the country is in the safety of a coach and looking out across the country is amazing. It's just what you see. And yes, there's poverty. Yeah. And you feel for the people that have got nothing, but they just get on with life. These people and it's really inspiring to see real poverty and people getting on with, and they've got innovation.
There's a resilience of spirit there, which is remarkable.
And as I say, I mean, India's growing significantly. I think it's was at about 11% this year. Yeah. And so that feeds down through the infrastructure, which creates, because back when I went in '84, there was no such infrastructure, and it was pretty scary. Now it is luxury. Yeah. We only use the best hotels, the best transportation, the best. The drivers are safe.
Craig, you've got a history in hospo in hotels and stuff yourself. Okay,
so this is your... I started out my career with Tourist Hotel Corporation and managing hotels.
THC.
Yeah, LTHC.
I remember a board game with THC hotels in it called, what was it?
Vaguely.
Called. My brother's probably stolen it and got it somewhere.
Yeah. So that also helps in my arranging of tours.
Yeah.
I understand the industry, and therefore I can work with the people in India and get the best. And also the other thing that they do in India is they what's the term the young people use? Catfish.
They catfish.
Rubbish photos, you know. They make the photo look. So when people, what I've found is that when people do try and go on their own, they see these wonderful photos, because I've experienced this, where you've turned up at the hotel and you get your phone out to check the pictures, like this room didn't have those mosquito splatters on the white wall. And so that's another thing that people get trapped by, and they go to a hotel that's purporting that it's 5-star and it's only 3-star. So there's so many traps. Yeah. But if you can get past the traps, and that's what I do, I haven't heard anybody that hasn't wanted to return to India after going to India.
Yeah. Well, let's see. It's Maharajah Tours.
.co.nz.
How do you spell Maharajah?
Well, there's two ways, one with an H at the end and one without the H at the end. So my website, I have both. So if you put in Maharajah and you spell it one way or the other, you'll go
Maharajah
Tours.co.nz.
.co.nz, and we'll start that advertising campaign.
Yeah, and that'll take people to the website where straight in front of them there is a button to click. Just send me and that will send a form with your address, and I will post out a comprehensive information pack with dates, with the hotels that we stay at that they can Google and look at, and all the information. And that'll come out in the mail with a couple of freebies involved as well, and then we can take it from there. If people are interested, then I'll contact them directly.
Sounds good, Craig. Really nice talking to you, even if we're not sunning ourselves in sand bloody Torini in the middle of it.
Well, I hope you seriously consider coming in January, Sean. Because
it's the only time of the year I can take a break.
I know that, and as I say, I'd really enjoy if you could come along, and we can talk about that.
Let's try and fill it up. Let's try and fill that tour up with platform listeners. That could be a hell of a good roadie.
Yes, well...
Ben, someone's going to be back here to hold the fort, mate, so just don't even think about it, as you're off to bloody Surfers on Friday for a whole week. Craig Woolliams from Maharajah Tours.co.nz. We started an advertising campaign with them next week, but as you probably know, everyone who advertises or gets involved on the platform, it's not just a commercial deal. I'm really interested in their businesses and what they do.